What is going on, boys and girls of YouTube? So today I am getting like hard into my roots, and we're doing guides for every role, starting off with the jungle, because you know it is what it is. It's honestly one of the most confusing or role people are confused about, in my opinion, from what everyone tells me at least. So I want to cover from beginning to end jungle guide. The goal of this guide is to be relevant from now until as long as the game stands, because pretty much from pre-season 1 to now, jungling hasn't changed at its roots. It's always been the same. You almost always do the same exact things. Yes, there's slight tweaks. There's if this then that type situations. Obviously the map changes, so rotations will change exact pathing, but the general idea of what you're doing has always been the same, which is a good thing because that allows you to learn the jungle now and forever understand that role. It also is a good thing because I can do this guide once, it'll be relevant to you, and you can always come back and have this information readily available to you to get started. So there's that. So this will be a beginner intermediate level jungling guide with the basics and a little bit of details into like the inner workings of what you should be looking to do. If you're new to the game, I played professionally for 8 years. I've played the game since it was in its closed beta, I think like 9-10 years ago, before its actual release date, way before then. Played jungle the entire time. I have an Xbox World Championship. I've won 4 PC lands. We had one of the longest winning streaks in season 2. We had one of the longest winning streaks that a team had ever had. Little bit washed up these days, but I still understand the game really well, and honestly I still love the game, so I want to teach it to you guys. So we're gonna just jump right into it, get right into it. First thing you're looking at as a jungler is your picks. Pretty basic information. You've got all your assassins. Which assassins are good and which are bad definitely changes patch to patch, or can change patch to patch. So I do top 5 videos for you to check out regularly to see what you should be playing. I always pop in my stream or just look at the gods that are being played at the highest level in the SPL and commonly in ranked games on ranked streams. Always options. So make sure you understand what gods to be played. That's your base starting point. My recommendation when learning the role or any of the roles, pick the 3 best junglers, 3 best for whatever role you're playing, 3 best gods, and only play those 3 as you are learning and grinding and figuring everything out until you've mastered both those gods and the position. Because that way you stop worrying about learning new stuff about your god. Everything becomes automatic. You stop thinking about what you got to do and when you got to do it, because you already know from playing the god so much. It allows you to focus on the role a lot more and learn that role better. Now that you have your picks done, understand your picks, you're looking at rotations. That's where people get really confused, and it's your beginning rotations. Your as soon as the game starts rotation. So you need to look into the meta. As I mentioned, this guide hopefully will definitely carry over season to season, but each meta shifts and the camps change, the positioning changes, so starts can change. Watch some videos, watch some people play, watch the top players play, watch my YouTube videos, watch my streams. It'll all be there. You can learn it off watching one video. That's super basic. But pretty much check into what is meta. Realize that the first 4 minutes of every conquest game are heavily dictated on these or by these camps and this specific rotation you'll be taking. Most of the time, like right now, you're starting speed alone. You're doing back camps alone. You're hitting level 2 as soon as possible. You're then rotating into the mid lane to make sure you can secure that mid lane and make sure nothing bad happens to your mid laner. Make sure that he doesn't get ganked. Just equal out that farm, secure neutrals, one of the side camps, and then go from there. You usually have around a minute-ish, a little bit less than a minute, but around a minute-ish to go for a gank, to go hit level 3 off a back camp, to do something, and then your speed buff will be responding. Because remember, your camps are all on generic regular timers. You've got 2-minute timers on your big camps, your speed buff, your blue buff, your red buff, your purple buff. You've got 60-second timers on your back camps, so you've got 1 minute. You have 5-minute timers on your big buffs, your fire giant, your gold fury, your portal demon, and then you have 3-minute timers on alpha harpies, which are the ones that give you vision at the gold fury. Focus primarily on the camps that you will be hitting over and over again. Your speed buff is a camp you're going to be hitting over and over and over again. Blue buff, you're going to be securing. You want to make sure you're securing that buff. First spawn right now in current meta, you are not doing. That could change later on. It's changed many times over the years, but just understand, on that second spawn, that is an important blue buff, as well as the third spawn. They're important blue buffs, so you need to make sure you're there on time to secure those buffs, to kill them, make sure your solo laner gets them. The game can change, the game can alter, things can happen. The enemy team could look for an invade. You could have a crazy advantage in that solo lane and you could go for an invade. Those are all options at that point in the game, but securing it is where it all starts. Being there and being in a position to secure the buff is where everything stems from, and how you can play from there and go for more from there, or go for less, or just continue farming. Now understand, this is your second rotation of camps. Your red buff should be done by the mid laner by this point. Your purple buff should be gone by the dual lane at this point. If they're not, help them out. If they're being invaded or contested, help them out along the way. Pick up some farm, grab mid waves whenever possible. Grab any lane XP whenever possible. If you ever go for a gank and it fails, make sure you don't just sit there doing nothing. Make sure you sit there and get a little bit of XP. This is part of your rotations. Rotations and rotating for a gank need to lead in you getting some kind of farm, especially if you don't get a kill. You don't get a kill? Awesome, great. There's your farm, there's your XP, there's what you need. The early game is broken out of that rotation phase into 3 things: ganking, farming, counter ganking. Ganking is simple. You choose your targets, who you want to gank, the lanes you want to go for a kill, based on the health of the person, based on that god's positioning. Are they playing aggressively on the tower line? Are they playing super far back? If they're far back, probably don't gank them. If they're playing in the middle, can you get to the middle? Can you look for a gank? Is that possible? You need to be able to judge those things based on the god abilities, your god abilities, what you could do in that moment, what the enemy god could do. Could he get away? Could he dash? Does he have some ability that'll turn it on you? You have to be able to pay attention to those things. And then you also need to look at your teammates' abilities. Your teammate god has really good ganking abilities. You have a good combo. You can stun and a raw ult can hit, something along those lines. Look for that. Look for the synergy between you and your teammates versus the synergy of that enemy laner you're trying to gank, the people that'll be around him, and how you think that will go. And just really, you're getting started. You're not going to know the specifics. You aren't going to be 100% this is a free gank. So learn, fail, try things, figure them out. It doesn't work, remember, hey, that doesn't work, let's not do that again. And you also need to look at actives. You have blink to get into the fight. What actives are they running? Are they running beads? Are they running Aegis? Did they go something different? Are they killable because they want something different? All those things are very, very important. And just knowing the positioning of your teammates and the enemy team is also important in a gank. If the enemy jungler is running on the opposite side of the map, that gank is probably free. If the enemy jungler is running parallel to you on the other side of their jungle, same jungle running into the same lane, that might turn into a team fight, not so much of a gank. So have those things in mind. Next thing was farming. Farming being very, very important to every role. Oddly enough, not the most important thing to the jungle in the current meta. In previous metas, it's always been important. You have to balance ganking, going for kills, while also maintaining your camp clearing and killing neutral camps and getting wave XP whenever possible. Right now in the current meta, this is season 8, junglers get the least farm on the map no matter what. Other than supports. The only thing you can out farm is a support right now. And that's just the way the game has been built out. Both side lanes, solo and ADC, get a lot of XP just by being in lane. Mid lane, very similar. They split a little bit more, but they still end up with more XP. So as a jungler, your ganking in current meta, season 8, massively important. You need to be going for ganks. If you only farm, you will fall behind an enemy jungler who is going for ganks and getting them. You will not keep up with him. It's just the way the meta is currently. XP and the meta could shift. I kind of think it will by the end of the year. And at that point, you'll go for a more neutral balance of ganking and farming like it always has been. Remember that one, farming. And then counter ganking. I have a lot of people don't understand what counter ganking is. It's basically having an idea of where the enemy jungler or team is, where they're rotating to, where they're going, who they're trying to kill, using wards, camp timers, and just your general knowledge of where they should be based on what's happening in the game. So you can just assume that person is in that place. If you don't actually know, you need to be assuming. Wards will help you know for sure. And then if it's reasonable based on the game, based on what's happening, where you are on the map, whatever camp you've just cleared, rotate and play around that incoming gank. So you can be right there. The second it goes in, you're right there after them. You can turn the tides of that entire engagement. You can turn it into a solid counter gank, get yourself some kills. Usually the last one into a fight, as long as it's within reasonable time, will end up winning because you haven't taken damage. Your teammate has been able to use actives and stalemate some time, buy some time, stalemated a little bit. They can use their other abilities by them time. I'm thinking the example I would use is if they're ganking your duo lane, your ADC is a Eternal Ball, goes up in the air. It's a Rama, goes up in the air. It's an On or a Cupid. They use their abilities to buy them some time. Their leaps, their dashes, their slows, their ultimates, those things. By a little bit of time allows you to get in when that other team is already grouped up and really just have a much easier fight for yourself. This is a really good style of play if you can do it consistently. Most of the time, it'll just be circumstance. Oh, look, he's about to go for a gank. Let me head over there and let me counter gank. That's how you'll see it. You'll see him cross over a ward. You'll see that your teammates are being hyper aggressive and playing really far up in their lane where you would usually want to gank if you were the enemy team. So you're like, hey, I would gank if I was that jungler. I'm going to go over there and stop this gank. It's a very important play for the early game. That is massive. Ganking, farming, counter ganking for that early game. If you're doing that stuff, I think you will find a lot of success. Even if you're doing it like most of the time and all the time, you're not perfectly ganking, you're not perfectly farming, you're not perfectly counter ganking, you're just doing it averagely, you will win a majority of games because there are so many people that don't process the idea of both ganking and farming at the same time, and they don't even know what a counter gank is. So be able to outplay them just by having knowledge they don't have. That's your early game covered for the jungle. Mid game, it's usually has been for every year I've played based around you as a jungler grouping up with your support player and your mid laner. Everything you do is off of each other, but sweet for that mid game mark. Obviously the mid game mark has kind of fallen down. It's almost like 8 to 13 minutes right now. 8 to 14 minutes, 7 to 14 minutes, somewhere in that gap is where that mid game hits. And essentially most of your fights are no longer ganks. It can still be ganks, it still happens, don't get me wrong, but most of your fights are around your support starting a fight, you and your mid targeting, having a similar target or going for the same target and killing somebody and then going for an objective. That's the goal of this. You roam, you path, you do everything together because it's a lot safer to team fight with your support at this point in the game because he is tanky and he is able to do the engaging. So as a jungler, you don't want to be engaging at this point. If you're engaging first, you're probably dying first. So you allow your support to go in first, do what he has to do, get everything started, and then you sync up with your mid and you pump out the damage on whatever target your support has engaged on. It causes this person to die super fast, keeps you alive, keeps your mid alive, and then going from that, the transition is you're looking for objectives during this time frame. So you go for that 3-man gank or that 3-man rotation, that little fight, the little skirmish, get a kill, then you go and you pull that Gold Fury. You go and you pull that Pyromancer wherever side of the map you're on, whichever's closer. That's what you want to be doing. If you're doing this and you're doing it consistently and you're playing off of each other, there's a very good chance the enemy team will not be grouped up. It is a common thing at high levels to just automatically be around your team. At mid and lower levels, it's not. People like to go for their farm. They like to sit in lane extra long. They don't like to rotate. They want to feel safe under their tower. So guess what? You can find that jungler doing whatever he's doing in his jungle and kill him. You can find the ADC trying to do his purple buff and kill him. You can find the red or the mid going for the red buff and kill him. There's a lot of opportunity there when you're grouped as 3 to go into the enemy jungler and get important kills that lead to objectives, which are how you actually win the game. The kill isn't what wins you the game. It's that objective, that gold, that XP lead you get to just shove it down their throats, take their towers, and then take their Titan. The mid game goes by fairly quickly, in my opinion. You transition out of this right into that late game off of one major objective, off of one big Gold Fury or one big Pyromancer or just a big team fight that leads to you getting a tier 2 tower. Once that happens, one of those 3 things happens, you shift directly into that late game and the entire play style changes for you as a jungler, and it has always been like this. In the late game, you've pretty much got 2 styles of play for a jungler. You're either assassin-y, where you're super damage based, you're pretty squishy, you don't really want to take any damage. And then you've got a hybrid tanky builds or hybrid tanky style, right? You've got your warriors where you're building defense and damage. You've got your Ravana's where you're building defense and damage, and you have a lot of ways to avoid taking damage. Hybrid style is completely different from the assassin style. The assassin style, you're essentially making sure in any team fight, any engagement, any objective, you have counter wards where you are standing. You cannot walk into the enemy jungle without knowing it's clear, everything's okay. And I don't mean there's nobody standing there waiting for you. I mean, you don't want them to know where you are. If they know where you are, they're expecting it. They've already planned what to do for when you come in from that direction. So you want to be standing on counter wards, whether it's your teammates' counter wards. Make sure you yourself are walking around with a counter ward. So when you want to go deeper, you drop a counter ward, make sure there's no ward there, and you can move up safely. This allows you to position for that flank style, which is pretty much what assassins have always done, where you're looking to dive the hunters and the mages in the backline, have a direct path to them, quick, instant, be right there, ready to go whenever the team fight breaks out or wherever opportunity pops up for you. And those counter wards and that positioning are what are going to get you to do your job in that late game. Once you've got that positioning, you've got that direct line on the hunter and the mage, you're waiting for one of 2 things to happen. You're waiting for your solo laner to dive the backline, which is what his job usually is. You want to go on his target if he does that. Solo laner dives the backline, boom, you're in on that target, you're insta killing him, and then you 2 move on to the next target. The other thing that you can be waiting for, which is going to be way more common in your games where your solo laner is not doing his job, is the second major abilities are used, things that would stop you from doing your job of insta killing that mage, that hunter. Once those are gone or used or thrown out, that you go that instant, that exact second. So say it's a Discordia, right? The Discordia uses her root. You could get a good engagement off of that. She does still have her dash. She uses her dash and her root, you 100% go in. Say it's an honor. The honor leaps to avoid an ability. The Her uses the his stun, his impale. Now you can't get CC'd off of him. Those kind of things are the things you should be looking at when you want to engage by yourself. You do not want to just run in because they're there. You want to run in because you have an advantage. If you're able to do those two things with that assassin style, you will kill them so fast that your team will be able to push up and be aggressive. Your soul inners or whoever dies with you will be able to kill that target, and you will be able to readjust from there. If the fight goes poorly, you will always be ready to disengage. So you jump in, you do your damage, person uses Aegis, or for some reason something goes wrong, you are looking to disengage back to your team and group back up with them. If you do get a kill, then you have a judgment call to make. Keep going, keep W-king. Are you healthy? Do you have abilities up? Or is your teammate with you? If not, regroup with whoever's closest and go for that next lowest target. If you're doing those things, your late game team fights and that assassin style play, it will stomp everybody. It's about having that patience and that understanding and realizing you don't have a whole lot of decisions to make. You have 1 or 2 decisions to make. When to go in and what to do after you've gone in. And those things fall out to, I'm going in because my solo's in, I'm going in because our abilities are down. And then it falls to, we got to kill, I'm going to keep going, or this is a little chaotic, or I'm dead, let me back off and regroup with my team. It's really that simple between your late game play and just positioning and how you want to go as an assassin or that assassin style. Second style is hybrid style. A lot of the time, with a hybrid style build or god, however it is, you are directly engaging. You are almost playing as that solo laner. You will still have a solo laner who'll be doing the same job as you should be, or even your support will be joining in on the dive. Just understand that when you are a hybrid and you do have some defense, it doesn't mean you can just take all the abilities to your face. You will die. But the overall goal here is to make sure you go in. You do not want to be alone when going in. You might be alone when actually engaging, but you want to make sure your team is right there on your back, right there on your ass, following in with you. Make sure using VGS or comms to have an understanding between you and your team, and make sure they enter the target. Have an idea of who you want to go on. You are not going to be diving on the support. He's going to take too long to die. If he's out of position, you guys can poke at him and look for little front kills, but you're not diving on the support. You're diving onto enemy junglers, enemy hunters, enemy mages, whoever's squishy and killable is who you are diving. You want to make sure your teammates have that target call understood when you go in. And if you have that right then and there, you're at a massive advantage. Just having everybody on the same person, being on the same wavelength of thought is just almost a direct advantage, almost an instant win for you in that team fight. You'll be diving still with your solo laners, as I mentioned before. You might be the first one in, so try to avoid as much damage as possible. And it's similar to that assassin style once you get to that position. If you've gone in alone and nobody else followed up and you're singled out, you got to get back to your team as fast as possible. If you've gone in with your team, you've gotten that kill, you're usually very healthy at this point, and you just keep trucking through to that next lowest target. Keep focusing them. You don't really have to worry so much as waiting on your team in that situation. You want your team to be following up on you, so just keep running and gunning and pushing them down. I understand just hearing it spoken and seeing the clips and stuff for the guide might not be the exact thing that's going to happen to you. It might not lead you word for word through your team fights, but if you have these basic thoughts in your mind while you're jungling, while you're doing your job in the game, it will flow and be super easy and clean for you to play. The only other thing to cover other than the early, mid, and late game is your objective play. Your gold furies, your fire giants, your pyros. You're pretty much looking to do as much damage as possible to that objective. You are usually the next highest damage on that target because your mage is saving the big mage ability to team fight or secure the objective. So that ability is not being used. Your hunter is sitting there autoing and doing as much as possible, and you are the follow-up damage to that hunter. You might even be doing more depending on the god you're playing. So make sure you're hitting that gold fury with your regular abilities on cooldown, but save your movement abilities for one of two things. If it turns into a fight, you want to have that ability to jump on the person coming in to contest the gold, allowing your hunter and your mage to finish the gold fury and secure it. So you're basically going to slow them down and pump out some damage and maybe continue a fight. Or if you do secure the gold fury while you're still on it, you want that movement ability to get the hell out. A lot of games are lost by doing an objective, getting the objective but dying at it, and then giving the enemy team free roam of all the jungle farm, all the towers, maybe even going to the next biggest objective if that's a fire giant or a pyromancer. It can really turn the tides by you wasting your movement ability to do an extra 100 damage when your auto would have done 90. So make sure you're not doing that. Make sure you're saving that ability, and honestly, you're gonna have a lot of fun, and you're gonna be able to do pretty much maybe not have a perfect game, but you're gonna have a perfect play style which will lead to you having more really solid games. Outside of that, based on the jungle, the only other thing that you really want to know, I never memorized the exact timers. I just kind of, I guess from playing this game so much, it became ingrained in my mind when stuff was spawning. But learning all this timers, I spoke about it a little bit in the video, or at the beginning of the video. Learn all the timers of the camps. Your back camps on 1 minute, all your regular buffs on 2-minute timers, your alphas, which are the ones by Gold Fury that give vision, are on 3-minute timers, your Gold Fire and Pyro are on 5-minute timers. Learn those things. If any timers ever change in a patch, go and learn them. If the mid camp timers change over and over again like they have for years, learn them. Knowing those things and becoming very just I don't know the word for it, but just naturally flowing gameplay leading you to each of these places because you know the timer it'll make your life so easy. It'll make ganking and farming just go hand in hand without you having to force anything. The timers on the map and the camps really do dictate a lot of that, as I mentioned in the early and mid game. So if you understand those things, learn those timers, learn what your god does by playing it over and over again, same 2 to 3 gods, just focus and learn them. You'll have a lot of success. I hope you guys liked this this video. I hope this helps you. I haven't done anything like this in season 1, I think. So trying to do my best, trying to make sure it's all the information covered. If you have any other questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them, so they're here for anyone else who has those questions. And please hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. See you on the video later today, later tomorrow, and the next day.